He was pretty highbrow. He had a desk with a little button underneath, so that as you walked in, he hit the button and the curtains all closed around you, and he had a kind of dish on his head.
At 76, rock legend Robert Plant has long been revered not just for his iconic voice with Led Zeppelin, but for the mystique that has followed him through decades of fame, heartbreak, and reinvention. For years, fans and insiders alike have speculated about the man behind the myth, the grief he carries, the wisdom he's earned, and the quiet fire that fuels his life beyond the stage. Now, in a rare and intimate revelation, his daughter Carmen Plant has stepped forward to confirm what many have quietly suspected all along. Her words offer a rare glimpse into the soul of a father, an artist, and a man who traded applause for authenticity. And in doing so, she finally unveils the truth behind Robert Plant's quiet legacy. The birth of a rock legend. Robert Plant's early years. When we think of Robert Plant, we often envision the magnetic stage presence that electrified arenas worldwide. The wild curls, the enigmatic stare, the voice that seemed to channel the primal forces of rock and roll. His musical legacy, tied to the epic rise of Led Zeppelin, spans decades and transcends genres. But to understand Plant's monumental influence, it's essential to look beyond the fame, beyond the legend, to the roots of the man himself. Before he became the electrifying frontman of Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant was a young boy growing up in the industrial heart of England, a place steeped in post-war history and social transformation. Born on August 20, 1948, in the Black Country near Birmingham, Plant's early years were defined by the gritty reality of a region struggling with the aftermath of World War II. The Black Country, scarred by bombings and soot-blackened skies, was far from a picturesque childhood backdrop. Yet, within this environment of hardship and industrial decay, a fire was lit in young Robert. A fire that would one day set the world ablaze with the fury and energy of his voice. The early influences that shaped Plant were not just musical. They were deeply rooted in his family's contrasting dynamics. Plant's mother, Annie Celia Plant, played a pivotal role in his upbringing. A woman full of life, warmth, and music, Annie was the heartbeat of their modest home. Her Romani heritage infused their family life with a sense of rhythm, mysticism, and cultural vibrancy. It was from her that Plant inherited his sensitivity to music, as well as the unshakable emotional expression that would define his later performances. Annie's spirited nature, a blend of joy, passion, and resilience, made their home an escape from the bleak world outside. A father's influence, tradition meets rebellion. In contrast to Annie's free-spirited nature, Robert Plant's father, also named Robert, was a man defined by order, discipline, and traditional values. A civil engineer and Royal Air Force veteran, Robert Sr. epitomized the kind of pragmatic, steady life that Plant would later struggle to reconcile with his own artistic soul. A man of duty and sacrifice, Robert Sr. placed the security of the family above all else, even at the cost of his own passions. Though he had once played the violin, his professional commitments led him to set aside music to provide for his family. Despite their differing temperaments, father and son shared a love for sports, especially cycling and football. They spent hours together watching games, and Robert Sr. was particularly fond of the Wolverhampton Wanderers. However, his father could not understand the direction his son was taking in music. To him, the idea of a career in music seemed a risky, impractical pursuit, one that would lead Robert down a path of instability. He envisioned a future for his son in something more respectable, a career in accountancy. Robert Plant, on the other hand, had a different calling, a calling that could not be suppressed by financial ledgers or corporate spreadsheets. As a young man, he felt the intense pull of music, particularly the raw emotional intensity of blues and rock. Despite the rift it created between him and his father, Robert would later describe these tensions as formative, shaping not only his musical path, but also his sense of independence. His father's wishes loomed large, but they were not enough to silence the beat in Robert's chest. The university struggle, a conflict of heart and mind. When Robert Plant enrolled at the London School of Economics, it was an attempt to honor his father's wish for him to pursue a stable, conventional career. He was granted a scholarship, and though his academic path seemed set, Plant found the classroom environment suffocating. Far from the creative and expressive life he had dreamed of, he felt trapped in a prison of numbers and formulas. Though he never completed his degree, Plant's brief time at university was not without its benefits. According to author Excel Hunter, Plant's exposure to financial literacy would later benefit Led Zeppelin greatly. His understanding of budgets, logistics, and financial matters helped the band navigate the complex business side of their success, allowing them to make savvy decisions such as renting a private jet as a mobile hotel during their tours, saving the band both time and money. Despite the practical benefits of his time at the university, it was clear that Robert's heart was never in finance. His true calling was music, and the more he immersed himself in the local blues scene, the more the divide between him and his parents grew. The emotional distance became unbridgeable. At 17, Robert left home, a painful but necessary step toward claiming his independence. He would later reflect on this period as one of emotional turmoil, a time of loneliness, uncertainty, and deep personal growth. The turning point: music as liberation. Though his departure from home was marked by emotional strife, it also marked the beginning of Robert's life as a musician. His early immersion in the blues scene proved to be pivotal. He frequented local blues clubs like the Seven Stars in Stourbridge, where he soaked up the raw, powerful energy of the Delta blues. His involvement with local bands such as the Crawling Kingsnakes helped shape his musical identity. It was in these formative years that Robert honed his stage presence, drawing from the energy of the blues and the electrifying performances of his idols. But even as his confidence grew, his relationship with his parents remained strained. Then, in 1968, fate intervened in the form of legendary guitarist Jimmy Page. Page, who was forming a new band, had already recruited some of the most talented musicians in the industry, but he was still searching for a frontman. A mutual acquaintance suggested Robert Plant, a young singer from Birmingham. Plant, unsure of himself yet determined, accepted the offer. After hearing him sing, Page knew he had found the voice he needed for his band. That band would eventually become Led Zeppelin, and the rest, as they say, is history. Plant's first performance with Led Zeppelin took place on one of the most significant days of his life, his wedding day. He had married Maureen Wilson, a nurse who had been by his side through his early struggles. As the band took the stage that night, Plant's personal and professional life collided in a dramatic, unforgettable moment. The personal cost of fame. Tragedy strikes. As Led Zeppelin soared to superstardom, Plant's personal life faced devastating challenges. In 1975, while vacationing in Greece, Robert and his family were involved in a car accident that left both he and his wife Maureen seriously injured. The couple was shaken, but Maureen's injuries were the most severe, and for months, Robert was confined to a wheelchair. Despite this, he continued to record, contributing vocals to the album Presence. One of the most poignant tracks on the album, Achilles' Last Stand, was born from the pain and isolation he felt during his recovery. A song that captured the emotional and physical toll of the accident. Yet even this personal trial paled in comparison to the heartbreaking tragedy that would strike in 1977. Robert's 5-year-old son, Karak, fell ill with a stomach virus. The illness escalated quickly, and within hours, Karak was gone. The grief that followed was immeasurable. Robert Plant later described the loss as one that shattered him. He had lost not only his son, but also a part of himself. The pain was so deep that it rendered everything else meaningless. Plant took a step back from music, retreating to his family's remote farmhouse, and for a time, he distanced himself from the stage. The weight of fame and the relentless demands of the music industry became unbearable. But it was the support of his bandmate, John Bonham, that helped Plant begin to find his way back. Bonham, ever the stalwart friend, refused to let Plant disappear into isolation. Through their bond, Plant slowly began to heal, rediscovering the power of his voice and the strength to return to music. Rebirth through music, the hesitant return. Moved by this unexpected and heartfelt gesture, Robert Plant returned to the stage, but it wasn't a return to his former self. His early solo career in the 1980s was marked by hesitation and a sense of mourning, a feeling that his best days might be behind him. His debut album, Pictures at 11, 1982, was both a declaration of independence and an offering to his past. The album, though filled with strong melodies, was far more introspective than the bombastic sounds of Led Zeppelin. The tracks hinted at the emotional turmoil Plant was grappling with, but they also signaled the beginning of a new chapter, one that was both an exploration and a reckoning with the loss of his former self. It was during this time that Plant found an unexpected ally in Phil Collins, the renowned drummer and singer. Collins, known for his work with Genesis, had a deep understanding of the pressures and emotional toll that fame and tragedy could bring. The two formed a close bond, with Collins not only playing drums on Plant's early solo albums, but also offering crucial emotional support during some of the darkest times in Plant's life. Collins was more than a collaborator. He was a friend who reminded Plant that life and music could bloom again, even after devastation. The fading of the voice, a new threat to his identity. Yet, just as Plant began to find his footing in the post-Zeppelin world, another wave of fear and uncertainty came crashing down. In the 1990s, Plant received a devastating diagnosis from a London-based voice specialist. After years of singing at the highest levels, pushing his vocal cords to their limits, Plant was told that his voice was deteriorating. The doctor's prognosis was grim. You may not be able to express surprise in 6 months. For someone whose entire career had been built on his ability to sing with power, range, and emotion, this news was devastating. The thought of losing his voice, the very essence of his identity, was almost too much to bear. It was a moment of reckoning for Plant, forcing him to confront the fragility of his own body, a stark reminder that even legends are not invincible. But as was his way, Plant did not accept this prognosis passively. Instead, he looked to others who had faced similar struggles and overcome them. Musicians like Elton John and Steven Tyler had weathered similar vocal issues and emerged stronger on the other side. Inspired by their resilience, Plant embarked on a journey of rehabilitation, adjusting his vocal technique, undergoing treatments, and ultimately emerging with a deeper, richer tone that gave his voice a new dimension. The voice that had once been the signature of rock and roll now carried more depth, reflecting the hardships and triumphs of the years that had passed. Reinvention and global sound. The road less traveled. Rather than clinging to past glories, Robert Plant chose to forge a new path. Reinvention became his signature, refusing to be confined to the legacy of Led Zeppelin's iconic hits. Instead of attempting to replicate the sounds that had made him famous, Plant began to explore new musical territories. His albums, Mighty Rearranged, 2002, and Carry Fire, 2017, featured an eclectic mix of global influences, incorporating sounds from Moroccan, Indian, and African music. Plant's spiritual growth, along with his deepening curiosity about the world, led him to collaborate with musicians from across the globe, bringing new textures and perspectives to his music. No Quarter, 1994, a collaboration with Jimmy Page, is perhaps one of his most ambitious projects, blending rock with Middle Eastern instrumentation and shot partially in Morocco, offering a mystical, spiritual journey through sound. This period marked a phase in Plant's career where music was no longer just about performance. It was about exploration, a journey that transcended borders and genres. A quiet peace, love, and reflection. In 2010, Robert Plant's life took yet another unexpected turn when he began a relationship with Patty Griffin, a fellow musician and singer-songwriter. The two shared not only a deep artistic connection, but also built a quiet life together in Austin, Texas. This period marked a rare chapter of emotional peace in Plant's tumultuous life. Griffin, known for her powerful voice and poetic songwriting, helped Plant reconnect with joy and artistic fulfillment. Plant, who had once been consumed by grief and the weight of his past, found solace in their bond. They would spend their time walking through the Texas countryside, writing songs together and sharing quiet moments of connection. For a man who had spent decades navigating the turbulent waters of fame and personal loss, this chapter felt like a reprieve. But, like many things in Plant's life, this peace was fleeting. In 2014, Plant and Griffin separated, and Plant returned to the UK, to the Welsh countryside where he had once run from the very roots that now called him back. It was here, in the hills of Wales, that Plant found his next creative resurgence. His album Lullaby and the Ceaseless Roar, 2014, was a deeply personal reflection on the journey of life, love, and the unpredictable nature of existence. The hills of Wales, once a place of escape, had now become his sanctuary, a place where he could reflect on the weight of his past without being burdened by it. His losses, his son, his best friend, his voice, his love, never truly left him, but he had learned to carry them differently. They were no longer chains, but talismans that guided his creativity and gave his voice a new strength. A journey through healing. Robert Plant's quiet resilience. In the later years of Robert Plant's life, there's a sense of peace that surrounds him, an authenticity that shines through even in the quietest moments. His transition from the chaos and triumph of Led Zeppelin's colossal fame to the quieter, more reflective chapters of his life marks a journey not defined by the usual markers of success, but by a deeper, more personal evolution. Those who have been closest to him often describe a man who has embraced his vulnerability and turned it into strength. There's a quietness about Plant today, a serenity that wasn't always present in his younger years. It's not the kind of peace that comes with retirement or the end of a career. Instead, it is a peace born out of lived experience, one that transcends accolades, one that is not so much about legacy as it is about presence. His later years have been a study in resilience, an acceptance of aging, grief, and the toll fame has taken on his body and soul. The intensity of his youth, the raw energy of the man who once commanded massive arenas with his soaring vocals, has given way to a more introspective, patient Plant. Where once he had been driven by the need to impress and push boundaries, he now seeks to express, both through his music and his interactions with the world. Fusing global influences with introspection, a new era of musical exploration. After years of being one of the most iconic voices in rock history, Plant could have easily leaned into nostalgia, cashing in on his legendary past. But rather than retreating to the familiar comforts of Led Zeppelin's thunderous sound, he has continually sought out new musical territories, exploring genres and sounds from around the world. His music today is a beautiful blend of global influences, mixing folk, blues, and Middle Eastern sounds with his signature English rock roots. Collaborations have become a hallmark of his later career, with one of the most notable being his work with Alison Krauss. Their 2007 album Raising Sand was a departure from his past, a daring mix of bluegrass, folk, and country, paired with a raw emotional depth that allowed Plant to shed his larger-than-life persona. His voice, now weathered with age, found a new life in this collaboration, a voice more tender, more deliberate, and more human. In these collaborations, it is clear that Plant is no longer chasing fame or recognition. Instead, he is chasing meaning. It's a profound shift in perspective, from the man who once sought to conquer the world with his music. Today, his music feels like a personal exploration of soul and spirit, a journey inward rather than outward. As his creative expression matures, Plant's work speaks more to the quiet, reflective aspects of life, the acceptance of mortality, the wisdom that comes with age, and the beauty of simplicity. The man behind the myth, Robert Plant's personal evolution. The myth of the rock god, burning bright and loud, living fast and dying young, has long faded away. Today, Robert Plant is a man whose life is defined by the things he's chosen not to accumulate. Rather than the vast mansions or over-the-top displays of wealth common in the music industry, Plant built a sanctuary. Those close to him speak of his deep connection to family, nature, and the music that has always grounded him. He lives a quiet life now, one filled with reflection, art, and love. The wild, unrestrained energy that once coursed through his veins has been tempered by years of living through loss, fame, and personal reinvention. His friends recall a generosity of spirit that has remained constant throughout his career. They describe him not as the rock star with a high-maintenance ego, but as a man who values deep, meaningful connections above all. Plant's fondness for folklore and storytelling is no surprise. His own life could be seen as one long narrative of highs and lows, reinventions, and personal growth. He's always been someone who deeply respects the art of storytelling, understanding that music is not just about melody, but about conveying something truthful, something human. One key piece of his personal evolution lies in his relationships. With those closest to him, he is not a larger-than-life figure to be idolized, but a father, a lover of words, and a man who walks with humility. He traded the spotlight for intimate dinners, replaced arenas with walks through nature, and took time to appreciate the people around him rather than basking in the fleeting glory of fame. His world is smaller now, but it is far richer and more fulfilling. The quiet legacy. A fire passed on in his interviews, Robert Plant often avoids discussing legacy in the conventional sense. For him, legacy isn't about the awards or records. It's about the people he has touched, the lives he has changed, and the emotions he has stirred through his music. This sense of legacy is not about accolades, but about authenticity. He reflects on the impact of his work not through the lens of chart-topping hits, but through the quieter moments of connection, whether it's the shared intimacy of a song or the silent support of a friend. One story that beautifully encapsulates this is a personal anecdote shared by Carmen, someone close to Plant. She recalls a time before one of her performances when Robert handed her a small pendant with a quote inside, "Sing with your feet on fire." When she asked him what it meant, he smiled softly and explained, "It means Don't hold back, ever. This simple but profound message is at the core of Robert Plant's legacy. It's not about fame or fortune, but about living fully, expressing yourself without fear, and carrying a fire inside that can't be extinguished. This legacy, passed on not through loud speeches or grand gestures, but through quiet, meaningful acts, speaks volumes. Robert Plant's story is one of resilience, vulnerability, and reinvention. He has weathered the storms of fame and grief, only to emerge with a wisdom and grace that continues to inspire others. His life, with all its triumphs and heartbreaks, echoes through his music, his relationships, and the quiet moments of connection he cherishes. A life fully lived, Robert Plant no longer stands on firelit stages, belting out songs that once shook the earth beneath his feet. But even in his silence, the echoes of his voice, the wisdom he's gained, and the love he's given continue to resonate. Behind the wild curls and the unforgettable howl of Led Zeppelin, there was always a man who knew loss, who loved deeply, and who, with time, learned to find beauty in stillness. His legacy is not one that shouts, but one that whispers. A legacy built on real connection, emotional depth, and the quiet fire of a life fully lived. At 76, Plant's journey continues, not marked by record sales or sold-out tours, but by the way he has navigated the complexities of life with authenticity. His story, filled with highs and lows, echoes in the quiet places of our own hearts, through the music, the love, and the lessons passed down. If his journey has ever walked beside yours, through heartbreak or healing, tell us what song of his still plays in the background of your life. For his true legacy is not just in the rock and roll anthems, but in the whispers that remain long after the lights fade.